Good morning. Today we are going to see about exception handling in Java. An exception is an abnormal condition which arises during the execution of a program. And here we have two types of exceptions. One is checked exceptions and next is unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions arise at the time of compilation, but unchecked exceptions does not arise at the time of compilation and they arise during the execution of our program. One such example is arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception is we cannot divide any number by 0. Anything by 0 gives to infinity. Infinity cannot be defined. So there arises an exception. For exception, the main class, that is the base class, is throwable. From throwable, we can derive it to error and exception. So error and exception are called derived classes and throwable is called as a parent class. From exception, we can derive many classes. One such class is runtime exception. Further, runtime exception can be derived into arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, and index out of bounds exception. These are the examples of runtime exception. First is arithmetic exception. As I have said already, anything divided by 0 gives to infinity which is not defined by a computer. There arises arithmetic exception. Next is null pointer exception. We are assigning a value of a string to null. Null means nothing. So when we try to print the length of the null value, we are given with an exception called null pointer exception, because we cannot define the length of something which is not existing. Next is number format exception. Here I have defined a variable string s is equal to abc and I am trying to convert it into integer. In any case, we cannot convert a string into integer and there arises number format exception. Next thing is array index out of bounds exception. I have created an array of size 5 and I am trying to access the value of the location a of 10, which is not at all possible because the total value of my array is 5. Beyond that, there is no space for that array. Then I am trying to access the value which is not at all available. There arises index out of bounds exception. It is the example diagram. In exception handling, there are major two blocks, try block and catch blocks. Try blocks consist of the code which is going to do the operation that is defined by us. If there is any exception within the try block, it throws out. The catch block receives the exception and unwraps it and says to it. And finally block is written. Whether there is any exception or there is no exception, finally block works. The 5 main keywords of exception handling is try, catch, finally, throw and throws. This is the syntax of exception handling. Within try block, we have to specify the main operations of that program. If it contains any exception, it is thrown out. The catch block receives the exception and allows us to handle that exception. Whether there is any exception or there is no exception, the finally block works as it is. Next, we are going to see a program with single catch statement. Within main function, I have written try, catch and finally. Within try block, I have written a output statement system.out.println access element 3. a of 3. Here I have created an array of size 2. If the array size is 2, then the location number is 0 and 1. But here I am trying to execute the value of the location 3, which is not at all possible. As we have seen already, when the array location which is not available is accessed, then there arises array index out of bounds exception. The exception is thrown out of the try block and it is catched by the catch block. And the catch block, we have used a printing statement. Using that we can come to know what we have done in our program. So after that we can modify our program and create an error-free code. Next, an example of multiple catch statements. Here I have written two catch statements, one specifying arithmetic exception and the another specifying array index out of bounds exceptions. In try block, I have written two statements. Int a of equal to new int of 5, which means I have created an integer array of size 5 which ranges from 0 to 4. Now I am trying to access the value of location 5. As I have said, the location starts from 0 and ends at 4. But here I am trying to access the location 5 which is not at all available. In right side of the equal symbol, I have written 30 divided by 0. Anything divided by 0 arises arithmetic exception. So in a single line, I have made two mistakes. One is arithmetic exception and also array index out of bound exception. As we all know, the right side of the equal symbol executes first. So first it arises arithmetic exception. Only one by one the exception arises. So first arithmetic exception arises and it prints like divide by 0. Then we can come to know we have made some mistake regarding arithmetic exception. Then we can correct our program. After that, if we try to execute the same program, as I have mentioned a of 5 which is not available, array index out of bound exception arises. Then the programmer can rectify that exception also. So these are the major concepts regarding to exception handling.